To tell you the truth, Final Shape is one of the best expansions that Destiny 2 has ever had, but that doesn't stop the campaign from being seriously flawed. It's one of the longest in Destiny's history, but it drastically overstays its welcome. It retraced paths it's already traced before by recycling the same mechanics over and over again, many of which had been reused from other Destiny activities, turning parts of the campaign into a snorri fest. It's got gameplay that's so easy my dog can play it. Hit. Perfect! Hit, one more, hit. Yes! Yes, Bob! Amazing! It disrespects its characters and voice actors with no hesitation. The storytelling is some of the worst I've ever witnessed, with remarkably bad dialogue.
Hi, Cora. Should we be worried about the pulsing Ahamkara guts in the walls?
You should always be worried when there are guts in the walls.
Its idea of storytelling is to literally tell you its story by having characters sit around a campfire and talk to each other while they pretend that you aren't even in the room, and it has no regard at all for the player's patience and time with its uninspired quest design. But it's not all bad, it does have some genuinely good qualities. At times, it allows that Destiny magic to truly shine. And while I was working on this video, I had to spend more time with Destiny 2 than I otherwise would have, and yo'd never guess what happened. For the first time in years, I actually had the desire to log into Destiny 2. It was nice to meet up with old friends, and I enjoyed running through some old exotic missions that I'd missed.
Wow, yeah, this is so cool.
Now, that desire to log back in didn't last for very long, but ultimately I was able to gain a deeper appreciation and understanding of this game that I had neglected for the past 4 years. And the Final Shape is responsible for that. But for everything the Final Shape does well, there are two things that it does poorly. Like the new Pale Heart area inside the Traveler is pretty awesome. It's got all kinds of variety like greenery, snow, and Minecraft cubes, but it's also unfinished. You can see where two separate skyboxes collide, and the place is also rife with invisible walls. No! So there's no clarity with regards to where I'm allowed to go. There's an invisible wall here. Hot damn.
Here we go.
I finally made it up. There's invisible walls all over. Oh no. The overall presentation is completely scuffed. I'm not standing there. You're welcome.
I thought that you'd be here.
Oh, the Prismatic subclass is a fantastic addition to the gameplay sandbox until you realize that all it does is make an already easy game even easier. And it doesn't do enough to shake up a 7-year-old game whose combat has grown somewhat stale. I'm going to be diving deeper into all of this stuff and so much more throughout this video, but I need to address something before I do. I always want people to be able to come to my channel and above all else, have a good time.
They always get my name wrong.
But for the Destiny fanbase, that might be difficult with this particular video because I'm going to be criticizing the game that they love. So I want to just say something to you Destiny fans directly.
Here's the thing. You and I are actually on the same side. I just think that with a few tweaks, this game could be so much better, which would only benefit you, the rest of the community, and Bungie. Now, let me be clear, right? I'm not trying to take away what you love about Destiny. I'm trying to expand on it. And it needs to be said that nothing I say in this video is a personal attack on you for liking what Bungie has put out thus far. But it is an attack on Bungie's greed, laziness, incompetence, and overall tendency to take the path of least resistance. And besides, as an avid player of this game, you know full well that it has some pretty bad qualities, because nobody complains about Destiny more than a true Destiny fan.
But my goal with this video is not to change your mind, but simply to hopefully have you understand where I'm coming from. I really think that you guys deserve so much better than what Bungie gives you, because it's abundantly clear that you put far more time and passion into the game than they do. And also, I wanted to go big with this video, seeing as how it's going to be my final video on Destiny 2.
In the beginning, Ren loved Destiny 1. It was extremely flawed, but hot diggity was it fun. Then Destiny 2 ruined everything with a terrible launch, terrible DLCs, scummy business practices, content vaulting, recycled content, and sunsetting. This franchise has given Ren a lot of ups, but even more downs, and nobody wants downs. Some of y'all might have remembered my voice, but if you didn't, I'm Susan, a legacy character here on this channel. But 5 years ago, I died. I fell down the stairs, which caused me to break neck. Then they cremated me by putting me in that blast furnace against my will so that Ren could spread my ashes into the cold autumn wind while leaving the rest of me behind.
Bye-bye.
And somehow I've been given a second chance at life, but I'm not sure why. I suppose if Katie 6 can come back to life, then I can too. In the meantime, I can catch up on movies and shows that I missed, like John Wick Parabellum and my new favorite show, Succession.
Immediately within this opening cutscene here where this little kid is hanging out with his chaperone, you can see the corners that Bungie blatantly cut, ensuring that none of the on-screen characters talk to one another, making this bustling town seem lifeless. How come nobody is saying any words at all? It's like a silent film. All because they didn't want to animate some lips and pay some voice actors. This is actually kind of a running theme across the franchise. This new area was pretty cool though. I like the look of it and I like the idea behind it. Having chunks of all kinds of different stuff that's been sucked into this vortex or void or whatever, and it also gives Bungie an excuse to recycle a little bit of old content here and there. We're on a Crucible map. It's a chunk from that map. Then they don't waste any time before introducing a brand new enemy type. It's pretty clear that they put almost no thought at all into the introduction of the Weavers. So for comparison's sake, let's take a look at the introduction of the Taken Phalanx and the Taken King.
This mission is scrubbed. Guardian, get to your ship and get out of there.
It's a night and day difference. They put a ton of interactive items around the room to make the Taken Phalanx seem more imposing when it uses its shield blast. And what this does is it immediately shows the player what this specific enemy type is capable of, on top of having an overall super cool presentation. Whereas in the final shape, the Weavers are just suddenly here. And that doesn't give the player any space at all to understand what this new enemy type does and why it's even a threat to begin with. And as I progressed through the campaign, I was able to see that they can suspend you in the air and also yank you towards them, but apart from that, I feel like they don't add anything new to the gameplay. And after that, we get introduced to another new sub-enemy type of sorts. Does that say bound?
Guardian, I don't think we can win this fight.
Just run through. Okay, cool. That was intense. Woo! From there, the intensity was multiplied as we're given a short amount of time to run through a portal before Marasov's paracausal link is disrupted, which would force us to be stuck in this realm forever. I'm only given 1 minute to escape, which was just barely enough time to change the settings of my stream. Probably a little smaller. And run 30 feet to make it out of there with just over 45 seconds left on the clock. Ooh, okay. How am I liking this so far, GC? I love it! We have now traveled inside the Traveler. It looks pretty awesome in here, and it drops teardrops that allow us to travel deeper within the Traveler. And so, forward we travel into the great unknown. So, on the day the final shape released, I received a letter from Bungie in the mail. They sent out a real-life exotic quest to a bunch of content creators, and you guys might have heard about this from other Destiny YouTubers.
Oh, and also, a message to content creators. Be sure to check your mailbox for the real-life exotic quest that Bungie is doing. I unfortunately won't be able to complete this quest, as I will be spending all my time getting ready for the raid. I don't feel the need to go out into the sunlight anyway, since the Traveler provides me with all the light I could ever need.
It says step 1 of 709. Visit the postmaster for more information. But I feel like the postmaster is not real. That's a character in the game. Oh, I think I know what to do. Okay, so I just met with the postmaster and he didn't even say a single word, but he did give me this, my next quest step. And all it says is to go to the Cryptarch. I have no idea what this means. Like, what's the real life equivalent? I don't know. This is already looking pretty grim.
Grims are the next enemy type the game introduces us to. Again, their introduction was uninspired, and at this point in time I had no idea what the Grims' abilities were and why I should be intimidated by them.
Servants of the witness, they must be remnants from a conquered species.
What do you say, remnants of a conquered feces? Later I found out that they scream at you and slow you down. Which is something, I suppose. To give Bungie some credit, both the Weavers and the Grims synergize somewhat well with the other enemies since it gives them an opportunity to take you out. But I still don't feel like they add any depth to the game. After dealing with the Grims, we are then introduced to another game-changing mechanic, where we are meant to kill an enemy that drops a thing. Hold on. It's a thing that we pick up. Then we dunk that thing into another thing, which opens the door behind that thing. Now, the next room is completely different in the sense that we do the same exact thing over again, but instead of killing one guy to get the thing, we have to kill two guys to get two separate things and dunk each of those two things into the other two things, which spawns in another thing, aka an ogre, and once we kill that thing, it opens up the door. Now, there is nothing about this mechanic that is fun, interesting, or novel. To me, it just feels like we're being arbitrarily slowed down for the sole purpose of making the campaign feel longer by doing a mindless activity, like going to the Cryptarch.
So I finally got this figured out. You're supposed to pronounce it Crypt Arch. So, came out here to the crypt and looked under every single one of the arches. That's where I found my next quest step. Okay. I don't understand this one. It just says eat the legendary banana. You think that's slang for something?
And now we finally get the new prismatic subclass, the thing we've all been waiting for. But before we get to go test it out in the field, we have to let everyone know that this video is sponsored by Surfshark, a VPN that keeps you protected by encrypting your data and masking your IP address. Before I had Surfshark, I used to go to the Best Buy and use their PCs whenever I needed to use a VPN. But now I don't have to. Surfshark allows you to access geo-blocked content, meaning that you could play Helldivers 2 if you happen to live in one of the 180 countries that the game is currently banned in with just the click of a button. Surfshark doesn't collect your personal information. Instead, it collects hugs and hearts by protecting your data whenever you use public Wi-Fi, so that you don't become a victim of identity theft. There was once a kid in my high school who pretended to be me for an entire week. If I had Surfshark back then, he wouldn't have been able to do that. Surfshark has 24/7 customer support and over 3,200 servers across 100 countries. You can also receive alerts the moment your email ID or credit card information gets leaked with the new Surfshark alert feature. So if you click the link in the description or pinned comment or use my code RENS, you can get an extra 4 months of Surfshark for free. So go check that out, especially since there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Big thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring the channel. Now let's get back to the video. Before we're able to use the prismatic subclass, we're given a couple of walls of text to read, which really drives a massive wedge into the overall pacing, kind of like an ad read. Then in the following combat encounter, we're given even more text to read while we're in the middle of a gunfight, which is the absolute worst way to tutorialize a new mechanic. I'm trying to play the game and read at the same time. Light damage and debuffs will fill the light bar. Darkness damage will fill the darkness bar. So this gets me thinking, right? Why does it need to give us text in battle? Why can't we get a standard tutorial where the traveler teleports us to some magical room or something like that, where it communicates with us and tells us how to use these new abilities in a controlled environment? You know, kind of like how they taught the player the combat mechanics in I Am Jesus Christ. The game that has you playing as the one true god that our guardians have yet to topple. So now that I have the prismatic subclass, I honestly don't feel like it adds a whole lot to the game, but I do think that it is fun. It's a good crowd pleaser, and it adds an additional little metagame into the combat where you hop between using light and dark damage to increase both bars. And I think it's great that we can mix and match grenades, supers, and melee abilities from other subclasses. It gives us so much more freedom by allowing us to create even more builds, and in Bungie's words,
it feels a little game breaking, I'm not gonna lie.
A little bit?
But that's the thing. The game is already broken, and it has been for years now. Like I mentioned in my last video, Guardians have only grown in power with the release of each and every expansion. We've gotten more abilities and more weapons, all of which need to be more enticing than what was on offer from the previous expansion. Yet the enemy we fight hasn't evolved alongside us, which is largely why this game feels so stale. Enemies fall to pieces with little to no effort in most activities regardless of whatever subclass you're using, meaning that you don't really need the transcendent ability that also comes with the prismatic subclass. Most of the time I forgot I had it because killing enemies with my guns was already doing a good enough job. But also, while this subclass is new, it also actually isn't new at all, as it's a simple amalgamation of the same old abilities and supers that we've been using for years now. It's nothing more than Bungie's most recent trip back from the recycle bin. Whoa! I just unlocked a super that's already been in the game for 7 years. I'm glad I woke up today. And if you aren't on a Prismatic subclass, you cannot go Transcendent, which makes choosing Prismatic the most enticing offer by far, because choosing anything else puts you at a disadvantage. So in that regard, the Prismatic subclass is actually somewhat limiting. Now I know this is confusing, but I do think that the Prismatic subclass is a good addition to the game. I just don't think that it's a necessary one. And I don't think it improves on the existing combat formula, because the game already has an overwhelming amount of builds to craft, as it's oversaturated with weapons and abilities. So the last thing this game needs is more builds. At this point, we are so strong that if you were to put us in a 1v1 against Jesus Christ himself, we would win. So how is a group of dregs expected to compete? Ultimately, as a Guardian, you can approach the game in 1,000 different ways.
That is a lot of combinations.
2,300. No, I'm just kidding.
But the game surrounding us Guardians has remained exactly the same for 7 years. And with the exception of endgame activities, the combat is so mindless that it doesn't need to be approached in thousands of different ways. So I've been talking a lot about how easy this game is, and to all you guys down in the comments who have already said something like, "Oh my god, how can you complain about the game being too easy when you've chosen to play on normal mode?" Well, this next section of the video is dedicated to you, and it goes a little something like this. At this point, I felt like the game was too easy. So when given the opportunity to bump up the difficulty, I took it. Longtime viewers of this channel know that I love a good challenge. Recently, I've completed RoboQuest on Guardian 4 difficulty while also getting an S rank on every single level. It was tough, man. It tested my aim, reflexes, movement, focus, and in-game mechanical knowledge, as I had to be experienced enough with each of the weapons and abilities so that I could choose the appropriate perks each time I leveled up and entered a shop to craft a synergistic build on the fly, meaning all of my in-game currency had to be spent very wisely. It took me a long time to unlock this difficulty and even longer to beat it, but when I finally did, I felt extremely relieved and accomplished. What makes Guardian 4 so difficult is that it increases enemy health and enemy damage, which is par for the course when bumping up difficulty, but it also changes the enemy's AI by making them more aggressive, and it throws additional enemy types into each arena to make the encounters feel slightly more challenging and difficult. These increases in difficulty force you to play the game to its fullest potential, meaning that as RoboQuest gets harder, it actually becomes more fun. Helldivers 2 is another fantastic example of how to do difficulty correctly. On Helldiver mode, the game just throws an insane amount of enemies at you, while also throwing more enemy types at you, giving you almost no reprieve, and each enemy type behaves differently, forcing the player to react to their different behaviors, which lends itself to an incredibly dynamic gameplay experience. And they don't even bump up the enemy health or damage, because Arrowhead Studios knows that emptying half of a clip into a small, hunter type enemy would feel terrible. Just like emptying half a clip into a drag or a taken acolyte feels terrible. Especially when I was just one-shotting that very same drag or acolyte 5 minutes ago when I was messing around in a patrol. I think the way Destiny does difficulty is really cheap and lazy. Now I know that the Destiny fanbase is gonna try to tell me that this here is a skill issue down in the comments, and you know what? They'd actually be right. This is a skill issue, as Bungie does not possess the skill to implement good difficulty.
Oh, he goes barrier if he's frozen? That's horse.
You see, playing the campaign on Legendary makes the game significantly less fun to play. Enemies are spongier than a square-panted bob, which makes shooting them feel tedious, and they do significantly more damage, which makes them much less fun to fight, as you are now spending a majority of your time behind cover to regenerate your shields. And they take away your radar for good measure, which I think is more of an annoyance than an actual hindrance. And what all of these changes do is they encourage the player to hang back and play like a coward, or even worse, to exploit any advantage you possibly can. God, I'm sweating bullets. This increase in difficulty doesn't require more skill from the player, it requires more patience by turning what's supposed to be a fast-paced shooter into a slow-paced slog. It doesn't take long for you to realize that this feels more like dead weight.
Overcoming something that is cheaply difficult is rarely satisfying. Like, yeah, it's gonna be really hard for me to eat this here banana that Bungie set up for me. They're a legendary banana. But all these obstacles on here aren't gonna make the banana taste any better, right? I'll show you. Oh God! Try to eat around you sometimes. I can do it. I swallowed it.
It's a massive waste of time, too, as Legendary Mode can turn what is already a tedious 3-minute boss battle into an even more tedious 10 to 15-minute boss battle. And then to add insult to injury, if you die, you have to start the encounter all over from the beginning. And in a game like Destiny, so many of your deaths can just be so damn cheap. Oh good. Get me back! So you'll lose a bunch of time to enemies that might boop you off the map.
Oh, cool! Yes!
Or maybe there's just a big old hole in the ground that you weren't aware of.
Oh, cool. So cool!
Or maybe the game will spawn a blight directly in front of you while you're trying to damage a boss. Now I have a perfect pitch for how to fix this. Make the enemies smarter and give them more abilities so that they can match our power and feel like worthy foes again. Because these Destiny 2 enemies are stupid. They clump up and let you kill all of them at once. You'd think that after 7 years of devastation they would have gotten wise to this and might try to change up their tactic, you know? Split up more? I mean, how satisfying would it be if you had to earn your mob explosions by forcing the enemies to clump up in one spot by using a grenade or corralling them with a Titan barricade or something like that? Imagine if the enemies actually valued their lives and behaved as though they didn't want to lose them, instead of jumping out of the safety of their invincible bubble. Or what if they got new abilities that allowed them to heal, or boosted their speed to become harder to shoot? Or what if the Fallen crafted some kind of device that was similar to a Titan bubble, and when one of them deploys it, all of the Fallen will rush to the inside of it, forcing you to make a move by either wasting a super to get rid of it, or maybe you can go inside of it and risk getting shredded by the enemy. What if the Vex did something similar and created a Radiolarian Well of Radiance that boosted their health and damage output, forcing you to drop whatever you're doing and take that thing out with a well-placed pulse grenade or sniper shot? Give the Minotaurs a new Void Slash attack that has an instantly identifiable animation and sound effect so that you could dodge it by crouching, or even better, sliding underneath it. Or just do anything to make it feel like the enemy is adapting to our gains in power. Not only would this give the game a genuine challenge, but it would also freshen up the combat and make the universe feel more alive. So when I first played through the campaign on the stream I did here on YouTube, Cayde was just suddenly here. There was no fanfare, there was no cutscene introducing him, nothing. But apparently there is a cutscene where Cayde and the Guardian reunite, except it never played for me. So his return fell completely flat. Oh well, probably had to do with those server issues at launch. But man, it is so nice to have Cayde back.
Feels a bit strange being back on this side of the comms. Just like the good old days.
He is hands down the best character in this franchise. He's sort of the comedian of the Vanguard, adding some much needed levity to the mix.
Maybe so, but going it alone isn't worth the risk. I learned that the hard way.
Luckily, she's got the 2 sharpest hunters in the system to back her up.
Oh yeah! And when do they get here?
Just simply having him around makes the game feel more fun and vibrant. It's not this one-note doom and gloom that Zavala and Ikora are so fixated on anymore. Now, the rest of the second mission here doesn't do anything too crazy. It starts delving into some story beats as the witness is talking to you from inside your head.
Let us free you from this architect of your enslavement.
No! I did it.
Whew, I thought I was gonna have to do some gameplay to get rid of that or something, but Ghost did it. It dumps you with exposition.
We offered to erase Prince Uldren's stain from the Dream City.
And then it dumps you with exposition.
Crow believes he is resisting temptation. As do you. But material is immaterial.
Before dumping you with even more exposition while you're forced to watch two characters talk.
We're supposed to be a team. Guardian and Ghost. That's how the Traveler made us.
And then after you complete this mission and every mission that follows, you need to sit there and listen to Ghost recap the mission you just played. Then, at the beginning of each mission, you can tune into a radio and listen to even more exposition, if that's what your little heart desires.
Hey kid, you out there? Look, you can ignore me if you want. I would.
But throughout all this expository loveliness, we are told that the witness tempts people by trying to give them whatever it thinks they want. We are then introduced to a brand new mechanic.
We'll start there.
They made it, okay, you have to pick up a thing and put the thing in another thing. That's new. That's new for Destiny. Then they introduce us to a new enemy type that launches an explosive worm thing at you after you kill it, which is incredibly different from the Lucent Hive, which launch an explosive butterfly at you after you take out their overshield. And another brand new mechanic where we kill a knight that drops motes of light that we then dunk into a pedestal, which is not to be confused with a nearly identical mechanic that was used in the Prophecy dungeon several years ago. These are very different, okay? Then we scan Ikora's ship, we kill another ogre boss, then we have a big old combat while Ikora just stands there and does nothing, kind of like she does at the tower. This is a missed opportunity here because it would have been so cool to have been able to fight alongside her, or if she contributed in any way at all. I mean, I guess when you think about it, she is somewhat helpful in the sense that she does provide cover for me and lets me shoot through her. So after we're done with that, she gives us even more exposition by telling us that the witness intends on using the Traveler's Light to lock us all into a mental prison of our biggest triumphs and biggest regrets, while the witness turns the universe into complete stillness. And the witness will do this by harnessing the Traveler's Light, which I kind of thought Gaul had already done that to a certain extent, right? But who cares? Here's the thing, yeah? The stakes really don't feel all that high, even though they're apparently higher than they've ever been. The fate of the entire galaxy is at stake, but it seems like the fate of the galaxy is always at stake with each and every expansion, and us guardians of this galaxy are the only ones who can save it. And so there's just no room to escalate things when that's already the status quo. This here is just another normal day in the Destiny universe. The Witness herself is also very non-threatening. Her voice isn't intimidating. Her big old unibrow is kinda goofy. She's got those big, cute, kawaii anime eyes. She's got that Instagrammable thin frame, complete with a small yet tight bootyka that she's packing behind that low-res cape. Plus, we all know that at the end of the day, the Traveler and our Guardians will all be fine and dandy because Bungie is planning at least 2 more episodes of content within the next few months, which is proof that the light and the galaxy will still exist after this expansion. And any doubts that I might have had were crushed when I logged into the game the very next day and got this notification right here, telling me about the fall of the Witness before the Witness has even fallen. Good job, Bungie, you're literally spoiling your own game now. But even without that spoiler, it really doesn't feel like anything is at stake in the final shape. Yet this is supposed to be the end of the Light and Dark saga.
We want to tell a story that makes you, the player, feel like all of that time that you invested, we saw you, and we want to give you the experience that you've been waiting for.
The amalgamation of everything that has come before, where all these iconic characters band together to defeat this galactic threat. It wants to feel like Avengers Endgame, but instead, it just feels like I'm waiting for Game End. And it's all made worse by the fact that traditional cutscenes are mostly replaced by being forced to sit here and watch characters talk. This is the laziest possible method of storytelling, turning these characters into nothing more than the messenger, with their raw, expository dialogue. And this completely destroys the game's pacing. It's boring. There's no way of skipping this, which makes replaying these missions even more of a slog, and they do this several times throughout the campaign. This is simply unacceptable. Either make it into a traditional cutscene, or give the characters more emotion and have them be more emphatic. Get them to move around that mocap stage some more to give this some energy. As it stands now, this is such a waste of our time. So the fourth mission introduces us to a mechanic that has us kill a mini-boss that drops a symbol. We look at this symbol, we memorize the symbol, then we go to a locked door and walk into that symbol to open the door. You do this twice per door. It's a very simple mechanic. I'm pretty sure it's not recycled from any other activities, which is good, but they end up recycling this mechanic anyway, as it's used in nearly every single boss encounter that follows throughout the rest of the campaign. So right now we're searching for Zavala. He's gone AWOL, and this is where we're introduced to Zavala's ghost, Tarj.
Bang! Bang! Bang!
Eventually we reach one of the campaign's biggest story beats where we defend this cabin alongside Zavala. I guess in the past, Zavala lived in this very cabin, which was overrun by Fallen, who then killed his wife and kid. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. And the witness is now forcing him to relive this traumatic event over and over again, giving him false hopes of saving his wife and kid. And now things are about to get real intense as we have an opportunity to serve alongside Zavala in the most important fight of his entire life. It's time to see Zavala shine as the badass that he truly is by setting up a little barricade back here and never moving at all, expecting me to do all the work. He's really not bringing a whole lot to the table here. It's no wonder his wife and kid are dead. Once again, we have another missed opportunity to have Zavala do something awesome. You know, like that time when Ikora threw a Nova bomb at a Cabal dropship?
And you will find no mercy in me!
How cool would it have been to see him get on top of the chimney and use his Titan Smash to kill the fallen brig, or to simply just have him participate in the fight alongside us, giving us callouts and handing us praise like Cade did in the beginning of the Forsaken campaign.
Can I just say I'm having the time of my life right now?
Or if he just did anything to add to the fight, because as it is now, he offers nothing. The Red Jacks in Onslaught have more combat capability than Zavala, who's supposed to be one of the most revered, feared, and respected guardians in the galaxy. After clearing the area, things get real sad. We're shown a deeply emotional cutscene where he tells his wife that he can't be with her. He needs to stay behind with us, and he finally says goodbye to her.
I'm sorry.
When you stop and think about it, this is pretty messed up. The witness is literally reopening the wound that he was left with after the death of his family, but I didn't find this moment to be impactful in the slightest, because up until 5 minutes ago, I had no clue Zavala even had a wife and kid.
Now, I'm sure Bungie fleshed out this storyline at some point along the way in like a seasonal activity or like a seasonal cutscene or something like that, but I missed it. And if I missed it, then so did a lot of other people, which in hindsight only heightens Destiny's sense of FOMO. And speaking of FOMO, I thought I was going to miss out on completing this entire quest until I realized it's not pronounced Tarj, it's pronounced Tarjay. So yeah.
Yeah, I could have watched videos about Destiny's lore before playing the final shape to get caught up, but I honestly didn't feel like I had to, because I am a bit of a lore master. This is the story of Destiny that I'm going to tell you. Here we go.
Legends and myths of old tell us of how there was a place before time and the universe, known as the Garden. Within the grove, there were two figures. First, there was a gardener, who during the long days would seed life in rapturous celebration.
But in all seriousness, I have played every expansion, unfortunately, and I've logged in a few times each year to play some seasonal activities and check some stuff out. I've also kept up with the Destiny scene in its entirety. I'll watch a Dado or Astacross video whenever they pop up in my feed, and I've been aware of a lot of the story beats, like the Traveler moving or Amanda Holliday's death. But I completely missed Zavala's backstory with Season of the Haunted. But even if I had watched videos about Destiny's lore leading up to the final shape to get caught up, how would I know which videos to watch? How am I supposed to know which topics Bungie's gonna cover in the campaign itself? There is 7 years of story that I would be forced to blindly sift through, and that's an unrealistic expectation on Bungie's part, because it's their responsibility to fill everybody in so that we can all get the most benefit from the story that they are choosing to tell. It's not our responsibility. But for the sake of this video, I have of course looked into Zavala's backstory after the fact. And in doing so, I do have a better understanding of what happened, but I still feel like this entire moment lacks impact.
But the thing is, with just a few simple little story tweaks, Bungie could have fixed this to make this moment impactful for everybody. So all the girls, okay, yes, we're good.
I was under the impression that the Fallen had attacked this cabin and killed his family in this very battle, and we were being forced to relive this moment alongside Zavala. But what actually happened was his kid died during some other battle, which caused him and his wife to separate, and his wife died of old age. Now here's how they could have made this moment more impactful. Bungie could have had us participate in that very battle where Zavala's son died by having us fight alongside Zavala and Sophia. Then after we clear the area and kill the boss, we watch his kid die in Sophia's arms. Then the screen just cuts to black. But when we fade back in, we're at the beginning of this fight again, except this time it's different. The arena has changed. The fight has become more difficult. There are additional mechanics to keep it fresh, and after clearing the area and killing the boss, we watch the kid die in Sophia's arms again. Then the screen goes black, and when it fades back in, once again we see that we're at the beginning of the fight, and the arena has changed. It's also increased in difficulty again. They've added in even more mechanics to make it more complex and keep it fresh. Yet still, no matter how hard we fight, we're forced to watch the kid die again. We come to the realization that despite how well we perform in this battle, the kid will always die in her arms, and there's no saving him. Not only would this push Zavala to an emotional boiling point, which would make for excellent drama, but it would also give the player a genuine insight as to what happens to you once you fall in prey to the clutches of the Witness. You would get a good taste of its deceit, as its intent would be to make you spend an eternity with the false hope of rectifying your deepest regret, forcing you to relive your darkest moment until the end of time. It would give us a clearer understanding of what is actually at stake, and it would make Zavala's desire for Sophia's forgiveness that much more impactful. The fifth mission here takes place in a snow area, which allowed me to appreciate just how much variety Bungie was able to put into the Pale Heart location. It reminded me of Europa. It felt familiar yet different, and it had some pretty cool stuff to look at. And there were these gusts of wind that would launch you up into the air, which was kind of fun. But ultimately, this mission didn't have a whole lot going on. It had you kill a couple of bosses by using that mechanic where a mini-boss drops a symbol for you to pick up, and then you go find the corresponding symbol to open a door. But the ending of this level was actually pretty cool. The Traveler gives you a brand new super ability, which feels like an alternate version of the Sunsinger from Destiny 1, except it unfortunately can't bring you back from the dead. I really did like this section though. It's one of my favorite moments in the campaign. The music was cool, and it was nice to play around with something that was genuinely new. I felt really powerful here as it spawned several ogres which are normally spongy, but now I was able to chew through them with ease. And something about this moment just clicked with me. Then things take a turn for the worse. After that mission, it has us doing lost sectors to find fissures of light in the ground so that we can communicate with the Traveler, which is par for the course in a Destiny campaign, I suppose. But to me, this always feels like Bungie's way of artificially inflating the runtime of the campaign, because if you're a hardcore player, you're gonna be replaying these lost sectors countless times over anyway. And as a casual player, I don't really have any interest in running through lost sectors. Although I will admit that the second lost sector was kinda cool. It had this small area of just tiny hallways, and then it opens up into a big arena with platforms and stuff. It was one of the better designed levels in the game so far because I had to be mindful of where I was standing. You know, I had to actually think a little bit. And now it's time for a strike, which I actually thought was kind of fun. Sure, it has you grabbing a ball to dunk it into something to progress, but once you grab the ball, you run through an obstacle course as the room is moving or as lava is rising from the ground. I like this a lot. Something like this to keep things fresh from time to time is really all I'm asking for, you know? The cynical part of me thinks that they don't include cool stuff like this into the campaign levels because you're only meant to play through these missions a couple of times max, whereas the strikes are intended to be played dozens of times. But I had a good time with this, and at the end of it, the story was able to progress itself some more.
Devotion, bravery, sacrifice. What does that even mean?
I don't know!
Now, after all that, we're finally able to play the sixth mission, which is where the game's mission design truly shines. It does this crazy ambitious gimmick where it has you go to an arena and kill all the enemies in it. But after that, it gets nuts. Listen, you walk up to a statue, and then you listen to it while it talks to you.
Your commander are a witness. But without you, he will become one among its many.
It's super fun. The only problem I have with this is that they only repeat this gimmick 5 times. Because I was hoping to be able to do this some more, you know? 7 times, 10 times even. I just love the simplicity of going from one arena to the next and killing all the guys in it, and then listening to the statues cry.
Get yourself to darkness and see.
Man, Bungie, how do you do it? This really allowed me to appreciate Bungie's level of efficiency, as they didn't need to animate these statues as they talked. Because they're statues. Statues of limitations. And after the fun is over, we get a cutscene where Zavala's ghost gets killed. Oops. Yeah, this had no impact on me at all. It's tough to feel empathy for the ghost when he literally flew within arm's reach of the witness.
What do you see? I see fear.
Taj, no! That's kind of retarded, if you ask me. But now, we're here, at the final mission. The end is finally in sight. This horror story is nearly over. But boy, this last level is absurdly long. It has some combat arenas, some neat platforming sections, and then the witness tries to tempt us like she did Zavala.
Accept all that you be adorned.
Here's the thing, right? You're trying to tempt me with riches, but I already have so much stuff. I just got a new prismatic subclass. I got all these guns. I got all these perks. Like, what are you gonna give me that I don't already have?
Man, I tell ya, the storytelling in this game is trash.
It has to beat the final boss with the paws of justice. I actually know how to do this one.
Okay, buddy, that's Dolgeth, Blade of Reasoning. We have to kill him, Bob. Okay, buddy, here's the plan. I'm gonna take care of ads. You are gonna do DPS. Okay? Bubba, hit! Hit! Come on, bud. Yes! Yes! Perfect! Hit! Perfect! Hit! One more. Hit! Yes! Yes, Bob! Amazing! Oh my god, yes!
You did it! You killed Dilgerth!
The last thing we have to do now is fight the witness in a brawl for the ages.
What? Why? What happened to me?
We grab a relic, wait for its super to charge, then shoot the charged super at this enemy, which gets rid of its shield so we can damage it. Then the arena becomes dangerous, so we use the shield as a shield. Then we go inside of this realm and slice up a bunch of statues, which weakens the witness. After we do this a second time, we get to serve in battle alongside Ikora.
Hey, it's my girl.
Cade.
Hey, it's my guy.
And Crow.
Hey, it's him.
Yes, they're just standing there shooting, but by God, it's the most they've done through the whole campaign, and I just can't believe that I'm here to see it for myself. We slice up some more statues, which weakens the witness. But then the witness weakens us. So we just hold up our shield and hold up directionally to walk slowly through this little hallway thing here. And then that's it. The mission is over with. The campaign is complete. I have completed Zavala the missions. Now I've unlocked all the open world activities within the Pale Heart, and my ghost has become a vendor here that I can visit to go and pick up rewards. Although I can't help but wonder why I'm forced to travel to my ghost to talk to him when he's always right here in my pocket. But there's no time to think about that because there's still so much to do. I've got to finish up this entire Final Shape quest. To do that, I have to complete 2 exotic quests and a handful of adventures, which is pretty rough.
Okay, so we're doing quests within quests now. I was given this quest to get an exotic sword. Then through this quest, I got another quest to get an exotic sniper rifle. But also through this quest, I've been given 2 other quests, which I need to complete to progress this quest.
And this is when the tedium really kicked in and Bungie's malfeasance started getting to me. I tore through the new patrol activity called Overthrow, all by myself, jumping through one monotonous hoop after the other, such as jumping through one monotonous hoop after the other to unlock a chest, which also unlocks more points. More points unlocks the next tier of the Overthrow. And in the next tier of the Overthrow, I was forced to do even more stuff, like spawning a ghost, following a ghost, and defending a ghost, which got me more points to unlock the next tier. The next tier had me doing more monotonous tasks, like using my ghost to scan a tree while I defended the ghost, which unlocked the next tier, which was nothing more than a boss that I was meant to kill. Whew, and after playing through it just once, I really didn't feel the need to play through another overthrow ever again.
It just says overthrow. That's so vague. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? What? What are you... Oh, I get it. It wants me to overhand throw this rock to dislodge it from up there, like this. Actually, I can cheese this. I'm tall enough to grab it. Oh, easy peasy. Hopefully they don't patch out that little exploit for when Dado tries this. It just says, commemorate the greatest guardian who ever lived. Huh.
I then partook in a handful of adventures that had me retreading old ground, battling in arenas that I've already battled in with bland mechanics like kill an enemy that drops an antenna. Then put that antenna on the shield generator so that a Cabal ship from above will target the antenna to shoot the shield generator and destroy it. Even though I don't feel like I need the Cabal ship to blow this thing up for me because my Nova Bomb has far more power than those puny missiles do, but perhaps I'm underestimating the Cabal's technology, as these missiles are advanced enough to pass through solid terrain.
Really? Well, that's just good design.
Then they recycled Zavala's cabin as an arena. It's just having us do the same stuff over and over again. This is everything I hate about Destiny condensed into 3 eternal hours. But it wasn't over yet. More adventures, which have me going through more recycled arenas. Then I was forced to collect silver.
Whew, not bad, baby.
And now all I had left was the wildcard exotic mission, which I saved for last because usually the exotic missions have some of the best gameplay that Destiny has to offer, with amazing atmospheres, challenging and novel mechanics that make you stop and think for a while. Sometimes there's even a timer to keep the pressure on you and amps up the stakes. But the wildcard exotic mission didn't hold a candle to any of that. It was mainly just story-based, and as we all know, Bungie doesn't know how to tell a story. So there's a lot of Crow and Cade awkwardly talking to one another while they pretend that you aren't there.
Ikora needs you. Zavala needs you. Your hunters need you.
It has you doing tedious objectives like killing a bunch of war dogs and screebs, setting up a camp, picking up ether off the ground. Then of course all that ether gets stolen, so that was... yeah. Then you destroy blights. Then there's a sniping section, which is insanely boring and limiting, as you're forced to sit in this little cave and snipe shanks. But then all the shanks come into the cave and rush you anyway, which just makes me wonder why I can't simply go outside of the cave and get this section over with much more quickly by killing them all up close. I mean, when I tried to do that, the game completely stopped me.
Oh.
Then we go into another cave to kill a boss, and now we've finally unlocked the gun. And I must say, this is a really cool idea for an exotic. It's a sniper rifle that shoots golden gun shots. But none of this was worth it. In fact, this was some of the worst quest design I've ever endured. It sent me down a philotactic spiral. None of the content I just went through to get this gun was substantive in any way. It was all just recycled arenas with bland mechanics, game padding at its finest. And I would honestly rather have paid for somebody else to do all of this for me. And I shouldn't have the desire to pay somebody else to play a video game on my behalf. And I think that this quest design is an insult to the player's time. It's time that I'll never get back, especially because I don't plan on using the exotic sniper rifle or the exotic sword. And what's worse was these were mandatory if I wanted to complete the entirety of the Final Shape story. I couldn't skip these even if I wanted to. But now I'm on the final step of the campaign, which requires me to play and complete Bungie's first ever 12-man event, Excision. I love the idea behind Excision. It had a really cool cutscene building it up where every single character in the franchise gathers around the battlefield, and I had the pleasure of serving alongside some of the best Guardians who've ever lived. It's good to be serving in battle alongside Samsung QLED 8K Smart TV and a huge penis. This is truly the Avengers lineup. This did have a special energy to it, I must admit, but man, the activity itself was such a shit show. Bungie wanted it to feel like this crazy climactic event, but I feel like it's just overly chaotic. And I never felt like I was really contributing to the fight because there's 11 other people just shooting stuff. I'm not even paying attention.
Yeah, there's so much going on, I don't know what to look at.
I just keep looking at a huge penis. And some of the stuff in here was really neat. The hands are really cool, I gotta say. It's also prone to some pretty bad lag.
Yeah, I'm getting, like, there's people disappearing on my screen into nothingness.
That's just part of the Witness's magic. But this activity was really short and simplistic.
Oh, we're already here.
Oh, what?
This can be it.
It's made up of 2 arenas. In the first room, we capture 4 zones by standing on them. Then in the second room, we grab some light off the ground, and then we dunk that light into another thing, which lets us slice up some more statues. And then we can finally damage the boss after that. I would have liked this to be a little bit longer and a little more in-depth. And at the end of it all, we use our ghost to channel the Traveler's Light and kill the Witness once and for all. But apparently that was too much for our ghost and he dies, turning him into nothing more than a Rubik's Cube. Except he doesn't actually die. Cade dies by transferring his light back into Ghost to bring him back to life.
You're my favorite. Don't ever forget that.
Acting as the Traveler's equivalent of a jumper cable. Now, I find this entire cutscene to be absolutely absurd. First off, there's no tension here because we know that Ghost can't die. Because if he did, then we wouldn't be able to respawn, which would mean we can't even play the game anymore. Secondly, this happened with absolutely no build-up whatsoever. Ghost is just suddenly gone, and then before you can even process that, he's already back to life. Thirdly, we lose Cade again, which is stupid for so many reasons. I mean, bringing a character back to life only to kill him again? What kind of bait and switch is that? The Walking Dead did something similar with Glenn, and people had a lot of beef with that. What I find interesting about all this too is before they delayed the final shape, this cutscene was much different. Instead of Cade giving his light to the Ghost, our very own Guardian fused light and dark together to bring Ghost back, which is admittedly much worse than what happened in the final product. But the reality of the situation is that Bungie needed to end this campaign with something emotionally resonant, so that it would feel like this expansion had consequences. And while it is sad to lose Cade again, having him be the one to make this sacrifice makes absolutely no sense. What they should have done is have Zavala be the one to sacrifice himself for your Ghost. When you think about it, it makes perfect narrative sense to kill off Zavala at this point, especially when you consider that his Ghost died and his host died. And you could consider the killing of his Ghost a sort of foreshadowing for his death. And the real-life death of Lance Reddick would have made Zavala's death hit so much harder. And after dying, he could have gone on to be with his wife and son, which would have given his death even more narrative impact, and would have made his mission at the cabin more meaningful. To me, that sounds like pure poetry. Also, in a way, we've already lost Zavala, because without that iconic voice of his, he's just not the same.
We've been fighting for so long. And now, we've won.
I feel like it's disrespectful to Lance Reddick to keep the character alive at this point, because hearing Keith David's voice come out of Zavala's mouth is just weird, uncanny, and it looks pretty clear to me that the initial plan was to keep Cade alive. I mean, that's the impression I get from this deleted cutscene, so what happened? My guess is they probably just didn't want to pay Nathan Fillion to continue voice acting in their game. I mean, they can barely even pay their employees. And when they killed him off in Forsaken, they didn't even bother bringing Nathan Fillion back to voice Cade. Instead, they just had Nolan North do his best impression of Nathan Fillion.
Petra Veg, thanks for the invite. What you packing for this party?
Okay, pal, this crowd isn't gonna just let us stroll into the security hut. I'll go high, you go low. Bet you could uncork a bottle at 50 paces and never spill a drop.
What makes this even more frustrating is that after the campaign is over, everything just goes back to exactly how it was before the expansion started. Nothing changed. Apart from Cade, no one died. There were no consequences whatsoever. If you were to skip this expansion entirely, you wouldn't even know that it happened. Oh, I know what's different. His Ghost is missing. Which ultimately makes it feel like it wasn't a very big deal.
But this is a big deal. The commemoration of the greatest Guardian who ever lived. Samsung QLED 8K TV. Here it is, the second to last quest step. Of course. What else would it be? You know, doing this quest has been pretty exhausting, and it's also been pretty expensive too. But hey, that's just the cost of having a YouTube channel.
At this point, I had done pretty much everything I wanted to do in the final shape. I also played a little bit of Echoes, and to me it was just more of the same seasonal activities. Really nothing different here at all. Although I really would like to play the raid since it looks pretty awesome. But I don't have a dedicated group to play it with, and I don't want to spend several hours failing it over and over again with some randos on LFG. But as always, I can really appreciate the work that goes into making something this deep and grand. I also wanted to play the Dual Destiny mission, but I wasn't able to. Even though I was following a guide, I went to the spot that was there and I couldn't find whatever I needed to find, so I just packed it in and called it a day. Coming into the final shape, I had some pretty low expectations for it, but ultimately I feel like it was a huge disappointment. The story itself was bad, the storytelling was awful, the events of the story had no impact on the Destiny universe, the mission design was bland and uninspired, the game design was lackluster and outdated.
Why is there any invisible wall?
Cade's death was frustrating, and overall it didn't really bring anything new or worthwhile to the game. Yet, it's getting a lot of praise for being one of the best expansions the game has ever had. And the thing is, anybody who thinks that is right. The final shape is, objectively speaking, one of Destiny 2's best expansions. Which just goes to show you how low Bungie has set the bar of quality for this franchise. And that right there is the last word I have to say about Destiny 2.
All right, here we go. We made it to the final quest step. It's time. I'm curious to see what we're gonna get from this. Let's uninstall this thing. Let's quit delaying. All right. Yep. Perfect moment of triumph. Here we go.
Congratulations, you completed my quest and you set my soul free. It's time for me to go now, forever. But I want you to remember that you were always my favorite little boy.
Shit, Susan. I completely forgot she was in this video, but I guess she's dead for good now. Damn, that sucks. I mean, to think we just got her back. This fan favorite legacy character that everybody loved, just to have her ripped away from us again. God damn. Anyway, remember to leave a like and subscribe. Every like that this video gets will go straight to Susan's family, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.